Welcome to the Smith Publicity, all things book marketing podcast. The best tips, insights, and advice from the best in the publishing industry.
Hello. I'm your host, Michela DellaMonica. Today we have the pleasure and honor, really, of speaking with a literary agent, Eric Smith, who is also a published author, blogger, wears many hats. I'm sure you've seen his work around, as we're all very impressed by Eric. He's a well-connected book industry professional and soon-to-be dad. Congrats, Eric, and welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for that lovely intro. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, indeed. So we're thrilled to have you on once again. And we all know that being in the book industry these days means wearing many hats. So tell us about the many hats you wear.
Okay, yeah, sure. So these days I work as a associate literary agent for PS Literary. We're a agency based in Canada where I hope I get to move eventually. I mostly work on young adult books with a mixture of genre fiction and nonfiction. When I'm not doing that, I work on my own books. I'm a YA author with Bloomsbury. I have a series called Inked. The sequel and the final book in the little duology comes out in May. I used to work at Quirk Books, where I did social media and marketing for a solid 5 years, working on a lot of books. I feel like the most familiar to people will be Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children.
Yep.
And then I blog for a bunch of places. I write for Book Riot, Paste Magazine, where I mostly write about YA, as well as Barnes & Noble's young adult blog. So just pretty much all books all the time. I really need to find something else to do, but books make me happy.
Well, you'll definitely have plenty to do with a new baby. So I think focusing now on your writing endeavors and everything you have going on, and until then it's all baby for sure. So yeah. We'd love to know, for writers, our listeners, for this podcast, all things book marketing, are emerging authors, book industry professionals. So, why do you think it's important in the current book selling climate that a writer understand that their job isn't over when they finish their book?
Yeah, that's good. Oh boy. Well, there's just so much else that goes into making sure that book gets into people's hands. It doesn't just stop at writing the book. You have to do the work to make sure you get the readers as well. It's gone are the days where your publisher could just take out like a giant New York Times ad and make your book a bestseller, right? That doesn't happen
right
anymore. There's so many other working gears. There's working with bloggers. There's pitching to your local alternative weeklies. Then there's pitching to your big newspapers. There's getting involved with the writing community. There's so many other little gears in the machine that you need to be a part of. If you want your book to be a success.
Indeed, we're 100% right there with you. There's definitely a collaborative effort with the author and his or her marketing team that they that they partner up with, or just on their own. There's a lot involved. So that's really great that you outlined that. And as an author, you've experienced a lot of different avenues to having a book published, from traditional publishing of a hardcover book to ebooks and more. So tell us about those experiences and the pros and cons of different formats.
Yeah. Well, I was pretty lucky with Quirk. They published my first nonfiction book, The Geek's Guide to Dating. That came out in hardcover and audiobook and a million other things. They're really great when it comes to their publicity and marketing team. They pitch it absolutely everywhere. They do blog tours. They take you to conferences. It's a whole big machine. And that book did
great.
Really well as a result of that. Yeah, they're really good at what they do. And the result was, it's gone to a few printings. It's in a bunch of languages, and I'm very, very happy with all of it. But, it required a lot of work on my part. I had to go to those conferences. I had to participate in those blog tours. I had to be available for speaking engagements and writing guest articles for lots of places. And if you're not willing to do that, you kind of mess up that well-oiled machine that the publisher has in place. You really have to play along. With my YA books at Bloomsbury, it was sort of a different challenge because they're ebook only, and most teenagers don't really do ebooks.
The attention span, right?
Yeah, they like the physical formats. They like to be able to go into Barnes and Noble and buy their books. So trying to tap into that market was a little more difficult. I made sure I was a big part of the YA community when it came to that book. I did a lot of stuff that didn't have to do with the book in order to try to draw attention to the book. That includes blogging, talking about other people as much as possible, running pre-order campaigns, doing excerpts on places where I knew teenagers might be reading, and really trying to target it to the specific audience, because with a book that's digital only, you're probably not going to the book fairs. Sorry, that is my corgi in the background.
No worries.
Instagram.
We know all about your famous corgi. What's his name? What's his name, Andrea?
Augustus.
Yes.
He has a platform as well.
Yeah. And what is it? So our listeners can maybe check him out on Instagram.
Yeah, he's like Agent Augie on Twitter, where he dishes out his
Twitter
advice.
Nice. Excellent.
But when it comes to those ebooks, you're not really getting sent to those conferences. It's all very online. It's all very author driven. So you have to be on board to do the work, and it's a lot of work. But you love your book.
Yeah, that's definitely super important to elaborate on. I think that a lot of our authors, that we work with in the beginning stages, they don't really, it doesn't occur to them that it takes so much work to do publicity. It takes a team effort, and that involves their involvement and participation with the excerpts like you just mentioned, and the article submissions, and taking time to do phoners and interviews and email interviews. So I think that's a really great point you just made, is that it takes a lot of work from the author's end, and and to be prepared for it if they're considering for publicity and marketing efforts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So great. One of the biggest questions we get, and I'm sure you get as well, is how can an author attract the attention of an agent? So what is the best way to approach an agent, and what should authors know before doing so?
So it kind of depends. It depends on the genre, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. If you're writing fiction, the best way to get the attention of an agent is to write a good story. That's all that really matters. Platform, in my opinion, isn't important when it comes to fiction. Your story is. There are plenty of authors who are not on Twitter and don't have a blog and don't care about any of that stuff, and they do just fine.
Right.
It helps, it lets the agent get to know you a little bit on social media and figure out the kind of person you are. But really, it's not necessary. The story is absolutely what comes first when it comes to your pitching a fiction, a novel. When it comes to nonfiction, that's where it gets a little different. When it comes to grabbing an agent, if you're writing a book where you're supposed to be an expert, you need to be able to prove that you're the expert in that query letter. They're going to want to see that you've published articles in lots of places. They're going to want to see that if you're a memoirist, you've published essays and personal pieces in different spots. That's where the platform matters a lot, with nonfiction. Otherwise, you're going to have a really hard time getting that essay collection that you've written published if you haven't really done any work anywhere else, which I find, in my experience, surprises a lot of people. But that's just kind of how it is. They want to see that, I feel like every essay collection anyone has ever read, you flip to the back, you read that author bio, and it's like, so-and-so has been published on,
right.
Electric literature, and there's like a nice running list. You need that running list before you get out there with that book.
Got it. Yeah, that's great. Super valuable advice, and thank you for that. So right now, Smith Publicity is in BEA mode, and And to our listeners, BEA is Book Expo America. It's the largest book industry conference in America, happening in New York City, May 31st to June 2nd. So we want to ask you a BEA question. And we know you mentor, publishing industry students at Rosemont and Acadia University specifically, as well as teach. So first, what do you tell students who are going to BEA for the first time?
So you want to avoid looking like that. I'm going to sound terrible, but you don't want to look like that crazy writer who's running around with like their manuscript and like a trapper keeper and trying to get people to read it. Like, don't do that. Chances are a lot of the people you're seeing at BEA are publicists, marketing people, salespeople. Every now and again, editors do come, because they're there to support their authors and they're there to take meetings with agents and the like. But for the most part, they're not there to meet writers and collect manuscripts. If you want to do that and make that happen, the best way is to try to schedule meetings. Maybe you're connecting with them on Twitter. Maybe you're connecting with them via email, whatever the case is. Don't show up at a booth, surprise someone with a manuscript, because they're going to remember that, and you're going to be that person that came up and tried to shove a manuscript at the editor. Don't do that. What you want to do at BEA and a conference like that is take the time to do research. Go check out all these different publishers, see what they're doing, see what they're working on. Maybe get their catalog and bring it home with you. Publisher catalogs usually have the editor contact information in there, but make sure it's the kind of publisher that takes unsolicited manuscripts if you don't have an agent yet. Go to lots of panels, learn what you can from the authors that are on there, from the agents and editors that go to those things. Take the time to learn, take the time to observe, and get lots of free books.
Yeah.
That's one of the best parts.
And have fun, right? Enjoy it. Enjoy the opportunity and everything that's in front of you. Utilize, the time to take it all in. I definitely feel that is important as well. And then there's BookCon happening, which is a 2-day, pop culture fan event. So I assume you'll be at BEA this year?
Oh yeah, I'll be there and at BookCon.
Awesome. And how can authors find you? Will you be live tweeting as you'll be there, or do you have a specific booth that you'll be hanging out at?
No, I'm usually live tweeting when I'm at those things.
Awesome.
I think I'm going to be promoting my anthology while I'm there. Not quite sure yet, but I'll definitely be there wandering around and saying hi to people. Look for the guy with a flat cap and a tote bag. Probably doesn't help much.
Will do, and we'll be there as well. So we'll definitely look forward to seeing you in person and shaking your hand.
Yes.
As we close out here, we'd love to have you shout out your social media handles and get people on board with following you. So where can people find you on Twitter and Facebook and all of that?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Twitter at Eric Smith Rocks. And you can find me online at ericsmithrocks.com, where I talk about the books I'm working on, my recent sales and deals, as well as dish out lots of advice. So, those are the 2 spots.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eric. And to our listeners, you can find Smith Publicity online as well, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Smith Publicity. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Smith Publicity, All Things Book Marketing Podcast. To reach us and learn about our many book marketing services, visit www.smithpublicity.com or send us an email to info@smithpublicity.com.